Illumination by Massimo Scaligero. The presupposition of illumination is the realization by means of ascesis of the accord between the psychophysical nature and the psychospiritual being. Normally man has in thinking the vehicle of such an accord. Insofar as thinking comes to think according to its own pure movement, it implies the etheric cooperation of the two systems of forces, psychophysical and psychospiritual. It therefore potentially bears the connection of the I with the heart, that is, with the center of the etheric currents, wherein the divine and the human meet. The magical force that thus develops may be recognized as a power of absolute self-giving of the I, all the more essential, the more centrifugal it is. It is born from the ether of warmth of the heart, when the accord between the lower man and the higher man is realized by the I. In reality, a hierarchy continually violated, even inverted by daily experience, inevitably influenced by an influx of sensations lacking inner elaboration, is restored, albeit temporarily. Such elaboration is possible for the ascetic even a posteriori, in the moment of recollection. There then occurs a purification of the blood through thinking, analogous to that which takes place in the lungs through oxygen. In the heart, the blood of the lower man and the blood of the higher man meet, determining an equilibrium through which the blood begins occultly to realize the archetype of the integral man. In the heart, in truth, the blood partially dematerializes or etherizes, passing into an etheric flow that resurrects life, according to a process inverse to that by which, from a condensation of the cosmic ether and its differentiation into four ethers, physical form arose. Man can kindle the force of the sun in the heart. Through the etheric center of the heart, he can volitionally produce the ether of warmth. This is equivalent to saying that he can introduce renewing forces into the world. Such a possibility in modern man is daily opposed by dialectical thinking, which by its reflected structure, expressing the direction opposite to the spiritual, continually blocks the etheric light ascending from the heart. It may be said that the synthesis of the four ethers in man corresponds to what Tantric Yoga calls the current of Kundalini. Such a synthesis can be realized by thinking that not only frees itself through absolute ekagrata, one-pointed concentration, but succeeds in attaining its own light of life, springing from the heart. Moving from the ether of thinking, man can kindle in the heart the creative forces of the sun. Through progressively more intense illuminations, he can retrace in reverse the cosmic process by which, from a sidereal divine nature, he has degraded into a terrestrial animal nature. Man does not descend from the animal. The conception of the animal origin of man is in truth a pathological thought, a germ of illness and of destructive intellectual impulses. The animals are the physical vital forms that man expelled from himself in order to incarnate his own form. For the awakening of the solar element of the heart, decisive is the active knowledge through which one sees in man not an animal being raised to human form, but rather the opposite, the action of a transcendent principle that has been able to assume vital physical form by excluding from itself the animal nature. Where this principle conquers self-consciousness, it continues its work of overcoming vital physical animality. To recognize this principle is already to set it in motion. Its movement takes place in the ether of the heart. It is important to understand a radical distinction of method. Whereas the ancient ascetic moved from the blood system in order to act upon the nervous system by means of the breath, the ascetic of this time necessarily moves from the nervous system, but cannot act upon the blood through the breath, rather through thinking freed from the nervous system, that is, emancipated from animal nature. Normally, every psychic, psychological, or pseudo-yogic tendency today aims to revive the ancient dominion of the blood over the nervous system, that is, to nourish the world of cravings and instincts against the I. It is important for the ascetic of this time to recognize the etheric path toward the blood as the path of liberated thinking, which restores the unity of the disintegrated ethers. Only by possessing the path of thinking can he rediscover the metaphysical path of the breath. The autonomy that allows the inner principle to act etherically upon the blood, that is, upon instincts and passions, is the autonomy that thinking can achieve with respect to the cerebral organ, and therefore to the nervous system. As real initiatic science teaches, the true seat of thinking is the etheric body, linga sharira. Here it is a supersensible current of life. In the dialectical process, thinking deteriorates to the point of annihilating the element of life. Dialectic normally arises from such annihilation. There is no individual today who, in this sense, is not played by his own dialectic, that is, by cerebral thinking, in which his lower nature resounds, so that he inevitably enslaves thinking to error. Error is the dialectic, not thinking. True thinking cannot err. An error is always the semblance of thinking. An error truly thought ceases to be error, but it returns as error if thinking is not capable of recreating each time anew its own moment of truth, its etheric moment, independent of the etheric physical body. In reality, in the physical body, the ethers are moved, though not penetrated, by the adversarial powers. Man's mineral body belongs to the earth. His etheric body belongs to the solar element that dominates earthly existence. It is helpful not to forget that the etheric world is outside physical space, insofar as it is the inner space of beings and of worlds, the true space. In dialectic, the earthly element is made to prevail over the solar element. Such predominance, expressing the degradation of the ethers, is the cause of human evil. He who knows how to extinguish dialectic and yet continue to think with deliberate determination essentially begins to move in the higher etheric body, where the I can act upon instincts and passions in the inverse direction to that by which instincts and passions normally transform themselves into dialectic, enslaving thinking. By natural constitution, the I is founded upon corporeality, illegitimately moved by instincts and passions, that is, by what generates human evil and the necessity of bodily destruction. The foundation is the I, not the body. The exercise of suppressing dialectic through pure concentration of thinking realizes the independence of the inner principle from psyche and body. It brings corporeality to be founded upon the I, restoring to the four ethers their original creative function. In this way, the synthesis of the ethers split in the sphere of sensible manifestation is realized. The I, insofar as it sets in motion the power of its cosmic archetype, awakens the synthesis of the ethers, impresses its own virtue upon the etheric body, rendering it independent of the specific correlation that necessarily opposes it, on the physical plane, to the form of beings. Through this animation of the etheric body, the ascetic volitionally reproduces the ether of warmth, transforming it into a force of love, insofar as he is capable of overcoming the subjective limit and passing over into the other. Love becomes the magical power of the I, corresponding to its original redemptive function with respect to the ethers of the elements engaged in corporeal structure. The body is permeated by its own original potency through the fire by which consciousness reawakens in itself, as living thinking, the Saturnian virtue, the virtue of the primordial element of creation.